Apparently, Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema has begun to build up this franchise based on the success of the no, no. I'm always on the lookout of good horror movies, or sometimes bad horror movies that are technically a good time to watch, and so on, so on, so on. And one of the few horror franchise that is being having a little bit of a following is none other than the Conjuring franchise. And I can't blame them because ever since the first movie, The Conjuring, I do have to admit that it was a pretty good movie, despite some issues that I have some problem with it. And from that, it put on the mainstream some of those interesting cases of Ed and Lorraine Warren, some paranormal investigators of the time, and also their infamous Annabelle doll, and those are kind of like horror cases that I personally think that the cases behind them are much more interesting and or a little bit scarier than the movies themselves. Despite that, I technically think that where they succeed are not on the story department, but more on the cinematography. So I kind of give them thanks to that. Thanks to that. Although if you want me a little bit of a rundown of what do I think about the Conjuring films, let's say I really like the first Conjuring. The Annabelle movies suck. The Conjuring 2 was okay, in my opinion. It was about the poltergeist in Britain. And Annabelle Creation was also pretty good. Even though sometimes I tend to be a little bit picky on the accuracy of the events, because if I want to be a little bit of a nitpick, I don't like that the movie kind of over-exaggerate events of the whole cases. I mean, even the Annabelle doll doesn't resemble the real one, which is technically a Raggedy Ann doll, and I'm very picky on that thing. But the reason I'm here talking right now is that I just came back watching from the movie The Nun, which is another spin-off prequel, kind of like the Annabelle film, but this time they talk about an element that appears in the second Conjuring film. In this one, they wanted to talk about this painting of this nun who has this, who kind of looks like she was possessed by Pazuzu from The Exorcist. So technically, it's kind of like this demonic nun that appeared in the second movie, and yeah, it was kind of like nothing important. That doesn't even affect the movie. It just, and now that I think of it, they did the same thing with Annabelle, which in a way is interesting, but now that I'm realizing, it kind of makes me feel like I'm a fool, because it's kind of like giving you a preview of an upcoming movie, but they just snuck it into the movie that you're watching. So, okay, I'll play. I went to see The Nun today with a very, very full audience. And what do I think about it? Well, let's put it like this. It's much better. It's a little bit better than Annabelle. It's not as good as the Annabelle Creation. It's not as good as all the Conjuring films. So, in the get-go, I technically have mixed feelings about this movie. So the movie, first of all, unlike the other films, I kind of don't know or I didn't investigate enough to see if this is a case based on real life events or a real life case that, or a real life hoax, kind of like Amityville, some here and there. But the movie technically it tells kind of like the story of the demonic nun that it appears on The Conjuring 2. I mean, even the first 5 minutes, the first minute of the movie is just showing us clips of The Conjuring 2. And then the story starts. Apparently there is this kind of like demon that it is living on an abandoned abbot, where nuns go there in order to seal off the demon. Something went wrong in which the demon kills one of the nun, and the other second nun commits suicide, and the body was found by this French Canadian guy named Frenchie. Yeah, no kidding. This guy, they call him Frenchie almost during the whole movie. And he's played by this actor called Jonas Blockett. I'll get to this guy. But technically things are going wrong, so the Vatican sends this priest, played by Damien Bitcher, and he also takes along I think she's a nun in training because she didn't get her vows, played by Teresa Farmiga. And well, they go there and try to see and try to expel the demons. And then from now on, if you see many horror movies, especially ghost movies of that category, you're gonna see every single thing and every trope that you kind of see in this kind of movies, in which I already say that I can forgive it for people who haven't seen these kind of movies here and there, but unfortunately for a newcomer for an old comer like me, it kind of feels a little bit predictable. Not that it makes me angry, but probably people who they're just looking for something fresh might not get what they wanted. They're just gonna see what they usually get. And unfortunately what they get are mostly some of the most annoying tropes that you can find. Most notably, a lot of jump scares and orchestral stinks. I can't say that most of them are unearned, but I can't help that. Yeah, they're kind of annoying. Some of them, they work, some of them they don't. And it kind of, again, follows this good and evil thing. It follows demons. Sometimes they follow some investigations that sometimes it kind of goes nowhere. And it feels like they kind of take it a little bit too seriously. Although, yeah, demon stuff is something that people kind of take seriously, especially when you're making a movie that is based on Catholicism. Speaking of Catholicism, that kind of makes me realize that I did notice that while people tend to say that when you are a devout Catholic and all this stuff, you're gonna feel safe and everything is kind of pretty here and there, but when you twist it around, sometimes even the nicest things can become kind of creepy in a way. I mean, even a cross, despite making you feel safe, it kind of depending on how you use it, kind of feels kind of out of place. But anyway, despite some of the weakness of the story, I'm gonna give it credit that one of the things that those kind of movies succeed is the cinematography. I absolutely like the cinematography, and even if I get disappointed by the movie, I just can't help to admire the use of the camera, the use of the shadows. Sometimes the direction is technically well done, and I like how the darkness in which. For a movie like that, it kind of proves one thing, that maybe they're using those tired tropes of jump scare, but at least they are aware that they're gonna try to incorporate some atmosphere into something that it could be potentially scary. I could say that probably the beginning part and a little bit of a scene in particular that involve one of the characters and in a room and let's say undead with burlap sacks on their heads. That technically some of the most interesting parts of the movie that I can describe. And as for actors and characters, I will say that they're solid. They're not very annoying, let's say, but except one. I'll get to that. They're the typical trope of these kind of characters. Like, for example, we got the main girl who is kind of like a medium. She kind of has visions. The typical. There is the pastor who has a past that he kind of fails to save a child or a teenager from being from a failed exorcism, and now he's somehow come back to haunt him. Maybe because the demonic nun kind of bring him here. I don't know. And then we got the guy named Frenchie. For some reason, this guy. I felt like he kind of feels like the only character who is a little bit out of place. How can I explain this guy? This guy. He comes off a little bit quirky. He technically is Brendan Fraser the hell out of everything. He's there kind of like becoming imagine if you put some kind of action hero into a horror film, and sometimes there are some things that you kind of make you question about. Is that the character that they just put him only for the last minute? I mean, seriously, when the guy kind of runs away for the first time, I don't know why, but I just kind of began to chuckle that in order to ward off the demon, he just had to carry this big cross for the graveyard, and he carries it to the bar, and even the bartender is like, okay then. And yeah, he returns to the haunted abbot with a freaking shotgun. I think it was a shotgun or a Winchester. I don't know guns. But man, this guy, I don't know, he tries to also deliver some one-liner. But yeah, he technically is, like I said, he tries to be a little bit like Brendan Fraser, but like the Mummy. But luckily, he doesn't go over the top into Chris Pratt level. But still, what's with this guy? And speaking of the cross, I just thought that it would have been very funny if he comes back with the abbot with the cross with him. So, because it made me think that he's gonna turn into what was the guy, Wolfgang from Trigun? But no, but here's the thing with this guy and the things that all the things that are happening in this movie. I was actually thinking that this movie is kind of like a few steps away from turning into Castlevania. I will say that that probably what took me off a little bit about the movie is technically the same problem that I had with the Annabelle films and a little bit the second Conjuring, and that is that for something that it wanted to be based on a real life case, they tend to exaggerate too much on the event. Like for example, having things that probably is not. It feels like non-existent. In this case, not only I'm talking about the nun and their supernatural powers, but apparently it says that in order to ward off that monster, they have to get this pendant that inside it has the blood of Christ. Which, it makes me beg the question. if that's the blood of Christ, first of all, how the hell did they get it and manage to keep it for years? Years. I mean, I'm talking a little because they're talking about the kind of like the 1950s era or 1960s, and and they used it once in the Middle Ages. How the hell did they manage to preserve that vial of blood? And if they had to use it with to ward off the demons, isn't there the risk that you're gonna run out of blood after many rituals? Because where else you're gonna get the blood of Christ? I'm just saying, and that's kind of like a nitpick that kind of bothered me of that vial. So that's one of those other nitpicks that I have with the Nun movie. And probably you might be saying that, alright, you didn't talk too much about the monster, the Nun. Well, I gotta admit, I like the makeup. I like some of the elements that they have. But unfortunately, there are some shots that obvious CGI, a long mouth with the teeth here and there. It gives you the typical scares that you're gonna find in this kind of movie. And in a way, it gives you a reaction that is depending on the viewer. I just thought it was solid enough, a little bit forgettable as a film. Some people in the movie theater didn't like it. I mean, I just remember that while I was watching those kick-ass drawings in the credit scenes, I saw a guy just coming up and saying, "Man, this movie sucked." And a partner who accompanied me to watch the movie, he's like, I didn't like it. There was something like that. Something that didn't catch me. Although I do understand, it kind of tends to get boring when you see a movie that has been done and you've been watching for many times, anywhere, and it doesn't do anything new. Although I wouldn't say that it's particularly bad. It's just that this is a movie that could not satisfy for the most picky of all the pickiers. But right now, I'm just kind of rambling. Do I recommend this movie? Well, I wouldn't say that you should be desperate to watch this movie. You could rent it on a Netflix DVD or whatever you can. But my biggest suggestion on this film in particular, and also like The Conjuring, is that if you like paranormal stuff, like me, sometimes just reading the historical facts and the real life facts about the events of those, let's say, cursed artifact, ghost cases here and there, it's fascinating. It's not just because to look for a scare. I find it fascinating just to find out the truth behind it. Trying to see where it leads to trying to speculate some things that we don't know. It could possibly be a farce. I understand that, a farce. But you know what? Finding the lies behind the farce technically comes up as something very interesting. It's technically like being a detective of the unknown. This is what fascinates me from paranormal stuff, and I'm glad that the Conjuring movies came, because it made me feel interested on those cases, and I like to read about them. I like to see about it. Although maybe I will say that I should steer clear when I don't feel safe. I mean, a human also has this awareness to see where their limits go on your curiosity. So technically, that's my take on the Nun. If you want it, check it out. If Just don't do it. Do it. So that's all I have to say, and I pray to you guys.